Well, I said before the news, in this story, we actually agree with L.A. County Supervisor Zev Yaroslavsky. And matter of fact, he's not the only one. The Board of Supervisors, all of them, they don't always agree. They want something done about that dopey prisoner realignment law known as AB 109. And here's the main thing you have to know. Realignment, and realignment means that some of the prisoners who are under state control will be handed over to the counties.
It's prisoner dumping is what it is. It's not realignment. It's dumping dangerous prisoners on the counties.
Yes.
Thank you.
We now have a name for it. Are you ready? N3s. N3. What is that? These are people who can be placed on probation if their last offense was nonviolent, non-serious, and non-sexual. Well, Ka Pasasuk got that designation because his last violation was the methamphetamine possession, which I guess is considered nonviolent, non-serious, and non-sexual.
His previous criminal history included a conviction for second-degree murder and assault likely to produce great bodily injury.
And that's what Zev said. Just because the person's last crime is a nonviolent crime doesn't mean he's nonviolent, especially if he's had 1, 2, or 10 previous violent convictions. It's plain stupid, and it's got to be changed. That's why I meant what I meant when I said we agree with Zev.
Well, no, he's right. But you know what? I didn't hear him yelling about this a year ago when Jerry Brown and the crazy people were pushing this through Sacramento. I didn't hear him complaining about this. He needed 4 dead people in Northridge, and suddenly he smacks himself on his fat forehead and goes, "Wow, this is really wrong." Well, we have been constantly saying that the prisoners get judged on their last crime, which means they will get lenient treatment when it comes to this new dumping program. They're not going to get the kind of probation and parole terms that they used to. They may get let out of jail entirely. And the whole spirit of the 3 strikes movement was most of California collectively decided that you look at the resume of a criminal and that you adjust the sentencing according to his history.
The resume. You mean the rap sheet, yeah.
Well, yeah, his criminal resume.
That's an old street term, his criminal resume.
Because
his body of work.
Yeah. The idea years ago, during the soft-headed era, 30 and 40 years ago was, well, after he does his time, he's paid his debt to society, and he may be rehabilitated now, and we should not judge him by his past deeds that he's already been incarcerated for. It's like, no. He spends a year, 10 years, 20 years. Once he comes out, that's the same guy. If he was capable of killing before, he'll kill again. If he robbed before, he's going to rob again. If he did drugs before, he's going to do drugs again. You don't change the wiring of a person's brain. That's not possible, certainly not in a prison setting.
Now, it looks like, though, John, the supervisors have been looking at this for a while because this is unbelievable. Supervisors Antonovich and Mark Ridley Thomas, another one we actually agree with in this story, raised concern over the recidivism rate for these N3 probationers. They got statistics from some advisory committee. Are you ready for this? Antonovich noted that of the 12,701 N3s placed onto probation, 7,096 were rearrested for either committing new crimes or violating their parole, and 26% of them were rearrested for a new crime within 6 months. So that's what we're talking about. And by the way, 800 were turned over for deportation.
So 7,000 out of 12,000?
Yeah, that's correct. Were rearrested for committing new crimes.
So we're talking almost 60% were rearrested.
That's right.
Because a basic...
But they're nonviolent, non-serious, non-sexual people.
But yeah. But based on their last arrest.
Right.
But you see, in the real world, bad guys do bad things all the time. They just get away with most of their crimes. You rarely catch them. There are people who commit crimes every day, and most of the time they don't get caught. I mean, 99% of burglaries, for example, never solved in the state of California. 99%. Burglars really have a free ride to take whatever, which is why they keep burglaring.
Now, there was another layer to this, which brings us to another layer of deception. The Corrections Department has a Luis Patino, he's now the spokeshole, who said realignment is not to blame. The bottom line here, there was an admitted human error made in adjudicating the suspect at the county level. He's talking about Steve Cooley's district attorney's office admitting this week that Ka Pasasuk should not had been sent to a drug treatment diversion program after he was arrested for the meth possession. Based on his long rap sheet and his violent past, he should have been sent back to state prison. That's true.
That's true, too.
That's right, but Kopasasuk qualified as an N3 back when they passed the prisoner realignment bill, and I guess before the meth possession, and he was classified as an N3, and he was released in January and turned over to the county to be watched. And the county doesn't have resources to do this.
They make up these arbitrary designations because they needed to dump 12,000 prisoners. So they had to come up with a fantasy assessment by saying, well, God, the last crime was non-serious, non-violent, non-sexual, so he's okay. He's a good guy. Well, what about all this? We're not going to look at that, okay? We have to dump 12,000 prisoners, all right? If we start reading their rap sheets, literally, we're going to end up not releasing anyone. So, but again, day one, it was clear. We talked about it. Where was Yaroslavsky and Mark Ridley Thomas and the rest of these characters? Where were they? This was bound to happen. These 4 murders were destined to happen because of the stupidity of Jerry Brown and the idiots in the legislature.
Well, what the supervisors are really doing is they're looking for money. The chief probation officer, Jerry Powers, also spoke, and he said their department has 6,000 staffers to supervise 12,000 N3s have been dumped into L.A. County, on top of the already 70,000 adult and juvenile offenders they've been responsible for. He said this was passed way too fast. It was rushed through. They weren't ready for this. Then that explains why. And Kopasasuk apparently showed up. One time he reported in for probation, and then he didn't, which makes him, and we love this term, an absconder.
You know what? There's too many of these guys running around. There's not enough good guys to track them. There's no money, although, I don't hear any of these parole agents offering to give up their...
Just keep them in jail.
Yeah. The easy thing is to just build more prisons. That would be easy. You could do it quickly. It solves the problem. The judge didn't say that we had to release thousands of prisoners. He said we had to relieve the overcrowding. And they don't spend money on prisoners, on building prisons. They spend money on massive pay and benefit packages for the prison guards. That's where a lot of the prison money goes. Well, what did we tell you yesterday? The prison psychiatrist who made $822,000 in straight salary back in 2011. $822,000 in salary, not including the benefits. That's what they spend the money on. Now, I don't know how many prison cells you could build with $822,000, but it would be a good start, wouldn't it?
Don Kanabe says we got $325 million in reimbursements, but our costs for this new prisoner realignment probation program is closer to $600 million. And that's what I mean. They're looking for money. I don't know what it's going to take to scrap this whole thing, but...
more deaths. More outrage.
Yeah, the 7,000 that have been rearrested, they didn't all do murder.
You know what the thing is? This is the way human nature is. You got 4 people getting shot dead at 4:30 in the morning in front of some illegal boarding house, and people, human nature being what it is, it's like, well, geez, what were you doing there at 4 in the morning? You know, that's a troubled time. You're in some flop house or in front of a flop house. The sympathy level is going to be less than it should be. But what you're going to eventually have is people shot at a shopping mall, or maybe a shot at a school, or in a restaurant or something, or some young family taken out, or some kids taken out, and then the sympathy meter is gonna explode. Right now, it just happened in kind of a sketchy, murky area. 4:30 in the morning on Sunday. Who's out then? People assume that the victims might have been up to no good, and that's why you're not seeing a seismic change yet. And that's just the way human nature is.
All right, coming up after 6, we'll do the full rundown on the lockdown at the Cal State Fullerton campus last night. The 5 guys who knocked over the pawn shop. There are still 2 on the loose. And